Admiral Tay stood alone on the bridge of the HSS Iorith. The massive warship floated silently in the darkness of space, waiting for orders that Tay hoped he would never have to give. Through the thick glass windows, he could see millions of stars. Somewhere out there, among those distant lights, his people were suffering. 3 weeks ago, the Vakari Empire had attacked without warning. Their purple warships had descended upon 3 human colonies at the edge of known space. The attacks were fast and brutal. Before anyone could respond, over 2 million humans were taken as prisoners. Men, women, and children were dragged from their homes and loaded onto alien transport ships. Like animals, Tay closed his eyes and remembered the faces of his own family. His younger sister lived on one of those colonies. He had not heard from her since the attack. The thought of what might be happening to her filled his heart with cold rage. The door behind him slid open with a soft hiss. Captain Haya walked in, her boots making sharp sounds against the metal floor. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that rarely showed emotion. But today, even she looked troubled. "Admiral," she said, stopping beside him. "The Council has made their decision." Tay did not turn around. "And what did they decide?" "They want you to send a final warning to the Vakari. One last chance for peace." Peace. The word felt strange and hollow. How could there be peace after what the Vakari had done? But Tay was a soldier, and soldiers followed orders. He nodded slowly. "Prepare the transmission," he said. "I will speak to them myself." An hour later, the message was ready. Tay stood before the communication screen, his face calm and steady. He wore his full military uniform, every medal and badge polished to perfection. Behind him, the crew of the Ironrith worked silently at their stations. They all knew what was at stake. The screen flickered to life, and the face of a Vakari appeared. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes were large and completely black. A thin mouth stretched across his face in what might have been a smile. "Admiral Tay of the Human Federation," the alien said. His voice was cold and mocking. "How kind of you to call. Have you come to surrender?" Tay did not blink. "I have come to deliver a warning. You have taken our people. You have attacked our colonies. This is your one and only chance to make things right." The Vakari laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "Make things right? You humans are so amusing. Your people are now property of the Vakari Empire. They will serve us for the rest of their short lives." Tay felt his hands tighten into fists, but he kept his voice steady. "Return our people within 48 hours. All of them, unharmed. If you do this, there will be no war. If you refuse..." He paused. "There will be no mercy." The alien leaned closer to the screen. His black eyes seemed to shine with cruel amusement. "No mercy? Little human, do you know who you are speaking to? The Vakari have conquered 100 worlds. We have crushed civilizations that were ancient when your species still lived in caves. You are nothing to us. Less than nothing. Then you refuse?" Tay asked simply. "We do more than refuse." The Vakari waved one long, thin hand. "We will show you what happens to those who dare threaten the Empire." The screen changed. Tay's blood turned to ice. They were showing him the prisoners. Thousands of humans stood in long lines inside a massive gray building. Vakari soldiers walked among them, pushing and shouting. Children cried for their parents. Old men and women stumbled and fell. And standing at the front, bound in chains, were the colony governors and their families. A Vakari officer stepped forward, holding a weapon that glowed with purple light. He pointed it at the first governor, a man Tay had known for 20 years. "This is what your warnings mean to us," the alien on the screen said. The weapon fired. The governor fell. The humans around him screamed. One by one, the Vakari executed the prisoners. Each death was slow and painful. Each scream echoed through the bridge of the Iorith. The crew watched in horror. Some turned away. Others wept silently at their stations. Tay watched it all. He forced himself to watch every moment, to burn every image into his memory. When it was over, 37 humans lay dead on the cold gray floor. The Vakari returned to the screen. "Do you understand now, Admiral? Your people are toys to us. We will break them whenever we wish. And there is nothing you can do to stop us." The transmission ended. The screen went dark. For a long moment, no one on the bridge spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the ship's engines. Then, slowly, Captain Hana stepped forward. "Admiral," she whispered, "what are your orders?" Tay turned to face his crew. His eyes were dry, but they burned with a fire that made even the bravest officers look away. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but filled with terrible purpose. "Contact Fleet Command. Tell them that negotiations have failed. The Vakari have made their choice." He walked to his command chair and sat down. "Activate all weapon systems. Set course for the Vakari border." "And the rules of engagement, sir?" Commander Wu asked from his station. Tay looked out at the stars once more. Somewhere out there, his sister might still be alive. Millions of humans were suffering under alien hands. The galaxy thought humanity was weak. The galaxy thought humans could be broken. They were wrong. "There are no rules," Tay said. "From this moment forward, we show them no mercy. Every Vakari ship, every Vakari station, every Vakari world that stands against us will burn." They wanted war. His voice dropped to a cold whisper. Now they will learn what war with humanity truly means. The Ironwraith's engines roared to life. Across human space, 1,000 other warships received the same orders. Soldiers said goodbye to their families. Pilots climbed into their fighters. Engineers loaded weapons that had never been used before. The Vakari Empire had killed innocent humans and laughed about it. They had ignored the warning. They had thought themselves safe. They had made the worst mistake in the history of their species. And now, humanity was coming. The Vakari border station floated peacefully in the darkness between stars. It was a massive structure, shaped like a spinning wheel, with hundreds of weapon platforms and sensor arrays covering every surface. For 300 years, it had guarded the entrance to Vakari space. No enemy had ever come close to it. No enemy had ever dared. Station Commander Vex stood in the control room, watching the empty space on his screens. His black eyes were half closed with boredom. Nothing ever happened here. The humans had received their lesson, and now they would hide in their little corner of the galaxy, like the frightened creatures they were. "Commander," one of his officers called out, "I am detecting something strange." Vex yawned. "What is it now? Another asteroid?" "No, sir. It appears to be ships, many ships, coming directly toward us at high speed." Vex walked over to the officer's station and looked at the screen. His bored expression slowly changed to confusion, then to shock. The screen was filled with red dots. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. "That cannot be right," he said. "Run the scan again." The officer did. The result was the same. An enormous fleet was approaching the station, and based on the energy signatures, they were all human warships. "Impossible," Vex whispered. "The humans do not have that many ships." Our intelligence said. The first missiles hit the station before he could finish his sentence. "Captain." Hana stood at the weapons control station of the Ironwraith, her fingers moving across the panels with calm precision. She had trained for this moment her entire life. Every simulation, every drill, every sleepless night had led to this. "First wave of missiles has hit the target," she reported. Station shields are holding at 70%. Admiral Tay nodded from his command chair. Continue the bombardment. All ships, focus fire on the shield generators. The human fleet spread out across space like a swarm of angry insects. Destroyers and cruisers moved into attack formation, while the larger battleships provided cover fire. Fighter craft poured from the carrier ships, their small engines leaving trails of blue light behind them. The Vakari station fought back desperately. Its weapon platforms fired beams of purple energy at the incoming ships. Several human fighters exploded in bright flashes of light. A destroyer took a direct hit and began to spin out of control, smoke pouring from its damaged hull. But for every ship the Vakari destroyed, 10 more took its place. The human fleet was relentless. Commander Wu monitored the battle from his tactical station. He was a large man with a scarred face, the result of an accident years ago. Some said the accident had damaged more than his skin. They said it had taken away his ability to feel pity. Shield generators are failing, he announced. I am detecting multiple hull breaches on the station. They are losing atmosphere in sectors 7 through 12. Enemy reinforcements? Tay asked. None detected, sir. It seems they did not expect us. Tay allowed himself a small, cold smile. They thought we would send diplomats. They thought we would beg for our people back. He stood up and walked to the main window. Show them what happens when you make humanity angry. On the station, Commander Vex was screening orders that no one could follow. The control room was filled with smoke and the sound of alarms. Sparks flew from damaged panels. Officers ran in every direction, trying to save themselves. Get me reinforcements. Vex shouted. Contact the home fleet. Tell them. The ceiling above him collapsed. He dove to the side just in time to avoid being crushed. When he looked up, he saw something that stopped his heart. The main window had cracked. Beyond it, the human fleet was everywhere. Ships of every size surrounded the station, their weapons firing without pause. And in the center of them all, like a monster from ancient stories, floated the largest warship Vex had ever seen, the Ironwraith. Its guns glowed with orange fire. Its missile bays opened like hungry mouths. And painted on its side, in letters large enough to read from space, were 3 words: nitrogen monoxide, more mercy. The final blast came seconds later. The station's reactor, damaged beyond repair, exploded with the force of a small sun. The spinning wheel broke apart into 1,000,000 pieces. Bodies and debris flew in every direction. The 300-year-old fortress, the pride of the Vakari border defense, was gone in an instant. Station destroyed, Captain Hana reported, her voice showing no emotion. No survivors detected. Admiral Tane nodded slowly. Good. That was just the beginning. Set course for the next target. The fleet moved deeper into Vakari space. They did not stop to celebrate their victory. They did not pause to rest. The enemy had expected humans to fight like other species, to advance slowly and carefully, to give them time to prepare. But humans did not fight like other species. Over the next 12 hours, the fleet destroyed 4 more border stations. They attacked so fast that the Vakari had no time to send warnings. By the time the Empire realized what was happening, half of their outer defense network was already gone. On the Ironwraith, young Lieutenant Mina worked at her navigation station. She was barely 25 years old, fresh from the academy. This was her first real battle, and her hands had not stopped shaking since it started. She looked up as Admiral Tay walked past her station. Sir, she said quietly, may I ask you something? Tay stopped. What is it, Lieutenant? The people on those stations, they were not all soldiers, were they? There were civilians too, workers, families. Tay's expression did not change. Yes, there were. Mina swallowed hard. And we We killed them all. The Admiral turned to face her fully. His eyes were tired but hard. Lieutenant, do you know what the Vakari do to human prisoners? Do you know how they treat our children? Mina nodded. Everyone knew. The reports had been shared with the entire fleet. Then you understand why we cannot show weakness. Every moment we hesitate, more of our people suffer. Every mercy we show, they see as an invitation to hurt us more. Tay placed his hand on her shoulder. I do not enjoy this. None of us do. But when someone attacks your family, you do not stop until the threat is gone. You do not negotiate with those who murder your brothers and sisters. You destroy them, completely, forever. Mina looked at the screen showing the burning remains of another Vakari outpost. Somewhere in that destruction were beings who had never hurt anyone. Children who had never heard of Earth or humans or war. But then she remembered the footage from the prison. The human children crying for their mothers. The old men dying on their knees. The laughter of the Vakari guards. Her hands stopped shaking. I understand, sir, she said. What is our next target? Tay smiled grimly. Their military headquarters in this sector. We take that, and they lose all coordination in the outer territories. The fleet jumped to light speed, leaving behind nothing but debris and darkness. Word of their attack was just now reaching the Vakari homeworld. The Emperor himself was being woken from his sleep with news that the impossible had happened. The humans were not hiding. The humans were not begging. The humans were coming, and they were leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. The war had truly begun. And already, the Vakari were losing. The Vakari homeworld was beautiful from space. Blue oceans covered most of its surface, broken by continents of dark green forests and purple mountains. Cities glittered along the coastlines like collections of tiny jewels. Billions of Vakari lived on this world, working and playing and raising their families, never imagining that danger could ever reach them. Admiral Tay stood on the bridge of the Ironrith and looked at the planet below. Somewhere down there, in those glittering cities, the Vakari Emperor was hiding. Somewhere down there, decisions had been made to attack human colonies, to enslave human people, to laugh at human warnings. All ships report ready, Captain Hana announced. Orbital bombardment can begin on your command. The human fleet had arrived at the homeworld after 2 weeks of constant fighting. They had destroyed everything in their path. Military bases, supply stations, shipyards, and defense platforms had all fallen before them. The Vakari home fleet, once the pride of the Empire, was now scattered debris floating in the darkness. Sir, Commander Wu said from his station, we are receiving a transmission from the surface. It is marked as priority diplomatic. Tay turned slowly. Put it through. The main screen flickered, and the face of the Vakari Emperor appeared. He looked very different from the confident creature Tay had seen in intelligence reports. His pale blue skin was now almost gray with fear. His black eyes were wide and wild. His thin hands trembled as he clutched the arms of his throne. Admiral Tay, the Emperor said, his voice cracking. Please, we must talk. There has been a terrible misunderstanding. Tay said nothing. He simply watched. The attacks on your colonies were a mistake, the Emperor continued quickly. The commanders who ordered them acted without permission. They have been punished. Executed, in fact. And your people, the prisoners, they are being gathered now. We will return them all. Every single one. Unharmed. Unharmed. Tay repeated quietly. Yes, yes. Some may have suffered minor inconveniences during their stay, but we are taking good care of them now. The best food, the best medicine. They are practically guests. Tay walked closer to the screen. His footsteps echoed in the silent bridge. Every officer watched, barely breathing. Do you remember what you said to me? Tay asked softly. When I asked you to return our people the first time. The Emperor's eyes darted nervously. That was before. That was when we thought. I mean, we did not understand. You said that our people were your property. You said they would serve you for the rest of their short lives. Tay's voice was calm, almost gentle. Then you murdered 37 innocent humans while I watched. You made a choice that day, Emperor. You chose to show us no mercy. But I am showing mercy now. The Emperor leaned forward desperately. I am offering peace. I am offering to return your people. I am offering money, resources, territory. Anything you want. Just name your price. Admiral Tay turned his back on the screen and walked to his command chair. Lieutenant Mina, what is the status of the planetary shields? Mina checked our instruments. The main shield generator is located in the capital city, sir. It is currently operating at full power. Without destroying it, we cannot conduct effective orbital bombardment. Can we target it from orbit? Negative, sir. The shield protects the generator itself. We would need to penetrate the shield to destroy it. Wait! The Emperor shouted from the screen. What are you doing? I am offering you peace. Tay looked at Captain Hana. Launch the ground assault pods. Send our best teams to neutralize the shield generator. No. The Emperor's voice rose to a scream. You cannot do this. This is our homeworld. There are billions of people here. Innocent people. Children. Tay finally turned back to face the screen. His eyes were cold and empty. There were children in our colonies too. Human children who cried for their parents as your soldiers dragged them away. Human children who watched their mothers and fathers die in your prison camps. He paused. Where was your mercy then? The Emperor opened his mouth, but no words came out. You had your chance for peace, Tay said. You chose to refuse it. You chose to laugh at us. You chose to murder our people for entertainment. He sat down in his command chair. Now you will learn what those choices cost. The transmission was cut. The Emperor's terrified face disappeared from the screen. Minutes later, dozens of assault pods launched from the human ships. They streaked through the sky like falling stars, burning bright against the atmosphere. Inside each pod, human soldiers prepared for the most important mission of their lives. Lieutenant, Mina watched them descend on her instruments. She thought about what the Admiral had said. She thought about the human children in the prison camps. She thought about her own younger brother, who lived on one of the attacked colonies, thought she had not heard from him since the invasion. Pods have landed successfully, she reported. Ground teams are advancing toward the generator. On the surface of the Vakari homeworld, the human soldiers moved with deadly efficiency. They wore heavy black armor that protected them from Vakari weapons. They carried guns that could cut through walls like paper. And they had one simple order: destroy the shield generator, no matter the cost. The Vakari defenders fought hard. They were defending their homes, their families, everything they had ever known. But they had never faced enemies like this. The humans moved like ghosts, appearing from shadows, striking without warning, vanishing before counterattacks could be launched. Commander J led the primary assault team. He was a veteran of a dozen campaigns, a man who had seen the worst that war could offer. But even he felt something cold in his stomach as they approached the generator facility. Remember the mission, he told his soldiers through his helmet radio. Remember why we are here. Remember what they did to our people. The generator was a massive tower in the center of the capital city. It rose high above the surrounding buildings, crackling with purple energy. Around it, thousands of Vakari soldiers had built defensive positions. They knew that if the generator fell, the shield would fall with it. And if the shield fell, the human fleet would rain fire from the sky. The battle for the tower lasted 6 hours. Human soldiers fell. Vakari soldiers fell. The streets around the generator were filled with the sound of weapons and the screams of the dying. Buildings collapsed. Fire spread. The beautiful capital city burned. In the end, Commander J himself placed the explosives on the generator's main power core. He was the only survivor of his team. His armor was cracked and blackened. His left arm hung useless at his side, but he pressed the button that started the countdown. "Generator compromised," he reported to the fleet above. "Detonation in 60 seconds. All remaining forces withdraw immediately." He did not try to escape. He knew he would not make it. Instead, he sat down against the wall of the generator room and looked at the photo he always carried in his pocket. His wife, his 2 daughters. They had lived on one of the colonies that was attacked. He had not heard from them in weeks. The explosion lit up the sky. The shield flickered once, twice, and then disappeared. The Vakari homeworld was now defenseless. Admiral Tay stood up from his chair. "All ships, begin bombardment. Military targets only for the first wave." "Military targets, sir?" Commander Wu asked. "What about civilian infrastructure?" Tay looked at the planet below. The city still glittered, still beautiful, still full of life. "That comes later," he said quietly. "First, we destroy their ability to fight. Then, we make sure they never threaten humanity again." The first plasma bolts fell from the sky. Military bases exploded. Weapon factories collapsed. Communication towers burned. The Vakari watched helplessly as their world began to die. And in the darkness of space, the Iron Wraith's guns continued to fire. The streets of the Vakari capital were unrecognizable. Buildings that had stood for 1,000 years were now piles of smoking rubble. Beautiful gardens had become fields of ash and broken stone. The purple sky was dark with smoke, and the air smelled of fire and death. Soldier Hyan moved carefully through the ruins, his rifle raised and ready. Behind him, 50 other human soldiers followed in perfect formation. They wore full combat armor, their faces hidden behind dark helmets. They looked like demons from old stories, and to the Vakari hiding in the shadows, that was exactly what they were. "Contact ahead," Sergeant Yuri whispered through the radio. 12 hostiles barricaded in that building on the left. Hyan raised his fist, and the column stopped. He studied the building through his helmet's enhanced vision. It had once been a school based on the playground equipment visible through the broken fence. Now it was a defensive position, with Vakari soldiers watching from every window. "Surrender," Hyan called out in the Vakari language. He had learned enough during the long journey here. "Put down your weapons and come out with your hands visible. You will not be harmed." Silence. Then a voice shouted back, filled with hatred and fear. "Never. We would rather die than surrender to human monsters." Hyan sighed. He had heard this too many times in the past week. The Vakari propaganda had done its work well. Their people believed that humans would torture and eat them if captured. It was ridiculous, of course, but fear made people believe ridiculous things. "This is your final warning," he said. "Surrender now, or we will be forced to attack." The answer came in the form of weapons fire. Purple energy bolts flew from the windows, striking the ground near the human soldiers. No one was hit. The Vakari aim was terrible when they were scared. "Return fire," Hyan ordered. "Disable only. I want prisoners for questioning." The human weapons were far more accurate. Within minutes, the Vakari position was overwhelmed. Soldiers poured into the building, moving from room to room, taking down resistance with practiced efficiency. When it was over, 8 Vakari lay stunned on the ground, while 4 had died fighting. Hyan walked among the prisoners, looking at their frightened faces. They were young, most of them, probably students who had been forced to fight when the invasion began. He felt a small twist of pity in his chest, but he pushed it away. Pity was a luxury he could not afford. Not now. Not yet. Take them to the holding area, he ordered. Treat them well. We are not like them. The column continued deeper into the city. Their mission was clear: find the Emperor's bunker. Intelligence reports suggested it was somewhere beneath the central palace, protected by layers of reinforced steel and hidden passages. The Emperor had retreated there when the shield fell, taking his closest advisors and family with him. He thought he was safe. He thought no one could reach him. He was wrong. Engineer Sue was waiting for them at the palace gates. She was a thin woman with sharp eyes and quick hands, one of the best technical specialists in the entire fleet. She had spent the past 3 days studying captured Vicari systems, learning their secrets, finding their weaknesses. I found it, she said without greeting. The bunker entrance is inside the throne room, hidden behind the Emperor's seat. There is a biometric lock that requires Vicari DNA to open. Can you bypass it? Hyan asked. Sue smiled grimly. Already done. I modified one of the captured soldiers' hand scanners. We can use any Vicari hand, living or dead, to open the door. Hyan nodded. He did not ask where she had gotten the hand. Some questions were better left unasked. The palace was mostly empty. The guards had fled or died during the bombardment. Only a few brave or foolish soldiers remained, and they were quickly dealt with. The throne room itself was massive, with ceilings so high they disappeared into shadow. The Emperor's throne sat on a raised platform at the far end, made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light. There, Sue pointed. Behind the throne. Press the scanner to that panel. Hyan did as she said. There was a soft click, and a section of the floor slid open, revealing a staircase leading down into darkness. Cold air rose from below, carrying the smell of fear. I will go first, Hyan said. Everyone stay alert. There may be traps. They descended slowly, weapons ready. The stairs went deep underground, past level after level of empty rooms and abandoned equipment. The Emperor had prepared this bunker for a long siege. There was enough food and water here for years. Too bad he would never get to use it. Finally, they reached the last door. It was huge, made of the same dark metal as the throne, with complex patterns carved into its surface. The symbols were in ancient Vicari, words that Hyan could not read. The final chamber, Sue whispered. He is inside. Hyan placed the scanner against the door. It hummed softly, then clicked open. The room beyond was surprisingly small. It was decorated like a living space with comfortable furniture and soft lighting. And there, sitting on a simple chair in the center of the room, was the Vicari Emperor. He looked old. Older than Hyan had expected. His pale blue skin was wrinkled and thin, and his black eyes had lost their cruel shine. Around him stood a dozen guards, their weapons raised, but their hands were shaking. So, the Emperor said quietly, the humans have come for me. Hyan stepped forward, his rifle pointed at the alien ruler's chest. Emperor Vex of the Vicari, by the authority of the Human Federation, you are under arrest for crimes against humanity. You will face trial for the murder and enslavement of human citizens. The Emperor laughed. It was a weak, tired sound. Trial? You humans and your trials. Your laws. Your rules. He shook his head slowly. We never understood you. We thought you were soft, weak, easy to control. You were wrong, Hyan said simply. Yes, we were. The Emperor looked at his guards. Put down your weapons. There is no point in fighting anymore. The guards hesitated, but one by one, they lowered their guns. The war was over. Everyone in the room knew it. Hyan approached the Emperor and pulled out a pair of heavy metal restraints. As he locked them around the alien's thin wrists, he thought about everyone who had died to make this moment possible. Commander J, who had sacrificed himself to destroy the shield generator. The soldiers who had fallen in the streets outside. The millions of humans who still suffered in Vakari prison camps. Where are our people? Hyan asked quietly. The prisoners from the colony attacks. Where are they being held? The Emperor looked up at him with those empty black eyes. All over the Empire. Scattered across 100 worlds. Work camps, factories, mines. A thin smile crossed his face. You may have captured me, human, but you will never find them all. Hyan felt cold rage build in his chest. He wanted to hurt this creature. He wanted to make him suffer for every human life destroyed by his orders. But he was a soldier, not a torturer. There was still a line he would not cross. Admiral Tay, he said into his radio. We have the Emperor, awaiting further orders. The response came immediately. Excellent work, soldier. Bring him to the ship. His trial will be broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Hyan grabbed the Emperor by the arm and pulled him toward the stairs. The guards were being rounded up behind him. Engineer Sue was already downloading data from the bunker's computers, searching for information about where the human prisoners were being held as they climbed back toward the surface. Hyan saw the fires still burning in the city outside. The Vakari homeworld would take generations to recover. Some said it never would dot good, he thought. Let this be a lesson to everyone. Let the galaxy see what happens when you make humanity your enemy. The Emperor stumbled on the stairs, and Hyan pulled him up roughly. Keep moving, he said. Your people wanted war. Now you get to see how it ends. They emerged into the smoke-filled air of the ruined capital. Above them, human warships still circled like hungry birds. And on every one of those ships, soldiers waited to hear that their mission was almost complete. The reckoning had come, and it was not yet finished. 1 year had passed since the capture of the Vakari Emperor. 1 year of trials, executions, and the slow, painful process of freeing human prisoners from 100 different worlds. 1 year of teaching the galaxy what it meant to harm humanity. Admiral Tay stood on the observation deck of the Ironrith, looking out at the stars. His hair had gone gray during the war. His face showed new lines that had not been there before. But his eyes were still sharp, still filled with the cold fire that had driven him across enemy space. Admiral, Captain Hana said, approaching quietly. The final broadcast is ready. All major species in the known galaxy are connected and waiting. Tay nodded slowly. This was it. The final chapter of a war that had changed everything. How many human prisoners have been recovered? 1,800,000, Hana replied. Including your sister, sir. She arrived at the medical station on Earth yesterday. Tay closed his eyes for a moment. He had received the message 2 days ago. His sister was alive. Thin, traumatized, but alive. He had not seen her yet. He had not been able to face her. Not until this work was done. And the Vakari worlds? He asked. Hana's expression was carefully neutral. 12 major planets rendered uninhabitable. 37 smaller colonies destroyed completely. The Vakari species has lost approximately 60% of its total population. 60%. Billions of lives. Tay let that number settle in his mind. There had been times during the war when he had wondered if they were going too far. Times when he had seen the burning cities and the fleeing refugees and asked himself if this was truly justice. But then he would remember the footage from the prison camps. The children separated from their parents. The workers beaten for moving too slowly. The mass graves filled with human bodies. And he would give the order to continue. Again the broadcast. He said. The main screen activated, showing a view of empty space. But that space would soon be filled with the faces of every major leader in the galaxy. The 12 council species, the independent empires, the neutral observers who had watched the war from a safe distance. They were all about to receive a message they would never forget. Tay walked to the center of the deck and stood straight, his hands clasped behind his back. The cameras focused on him. The transmission began. "To all species of the known galaxy," he said, his voice calm and steady. "I am Admiral Tay of the Human Federation. I speak to you today not as a conqueror, but as a messenger. What you are about to see is a warning. Remember it well." The screen behind him changed, showing images of the Vakari homeworld. The beautiful blue and green planet was now scarred with black patches where cities had once stood. Smoke still rose from some areas. The oceans had changed color in places where weapons had fallen too close. This was the Vakari homeworld, Tay continued, home to 12 billion beings. Now it is barely habitable. Its people are scattered, broken, reduced to refugees begging for shelter from the very species they once looked down upon. The image changed again, showing other Vakari worlds. Factory planets with their machines shattered. Mining colonies with their tunnels collapsed. Military bases reduced to fields of radioactive glass. The Vakari Empire believed they could take what they wanted from humanity. They believed we were weak. They believed we would not fight back. Tay paused, letting his words sink in. They were wrong. Lieutenant Mina watched the broadcast from her station. She was older now, harder. The young woman who had trembled during the first battle was gone. In her place was a veteran who had seen things that would haunt her forever. But she did not regret any of it. Not anymore. "The humans you enslaved have been returned to us," Tay said. "Most of them anyway. Some died in your camps. Some died during our rescue operations. Each of those deaths is a wound that will never heal." The screen showed images of freed prisoners boarding human transport ships. Thin, weak people with empty eyes, being helped by soldiers who tried to smile despite their own grief. Children who had forgotten how to laugh. Parents who would never stop seeing their lost children in their dreams. "The Emperor of the Vakari was executed 3 months ago," Tay continued. "His generals, his advisors, his officers who gave orders to harm human prisoners, all of them have faced justice. The Vakari government has been dissolved. Their military has been destroyed. Their species will spend the next 1,000 years rebuilding what we took from them." Commander Wu leaned back in his chair, watching the broadcast with satisfaction. He had lost his brother during the colony attacks. He had never found the body. The Vakari had thrown it into a furnace along with dozens of others. This broadcast was the closest thing to peace he would ever feel. "But this message is not about the Vakari," Admiral Tay said, his voice growing hotter. "They made their choice, and they suffered the consequences. This message is about the future, about what happens to anyone who thinks about harming humanity." The images behind him changed one final time. Now the screen showed the human fleet, spread across space in formation. Thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of soldiers, weapons capable of cracking planets open like eggs. "We did not want this war," Tay said. "We asked for peace. We begged for the return of our people. We offered every chance for the Vakari to do the right thing. They laughed at us. They murdered our citizens while we watched." Engineer Sue thought about her parents, who had been on one of the attacked colonies. They had been among the first to die. She had not even been able to bury them. The Vakari had scattered their ashes across a garbage pit, but she had scattered Vakari cities across a dozen worlds. Perhaps that made them even. Perhaps nothing ever would. "So here is our message to the galaxy," Admiral Tay said, his voice dropping to a cold, quiet intensity. "Humanity does not seek conflict. We want to trade with you. We want to learn from you. We want to build a future where all species can live in peace." He stepped forward, closer to the camera. His eyes seemed to look directly at every leader watching across 1,000 light years. "But if you harm our people," he said slowly, "there will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. There will be no second chances. We will come for you with everything we have. We will destroy your fleets, burn your cities, and reduce your worlds to wastelands. We will not stop until the threat is eliminated, completely, permanently." Soldier Hyan stood at attention in the ship's main hall, watching the broadcast with his fellow soldiers. He thought about the final days of the ground war, when they had swept through Vihuri territory like a fire through dry grass. He thought about the enemy soldiers who had begged for mercy, and the prisoners they had taken despite their own rage. They could have killed them all. Many humans had wanted to. But Admiral Tay had insisted on following the rules of war, on showing the galaxy that humanity could be fair even in victory. It was a difficult balance. Strength and mercy. Rage and control. But they had managed it. And now the galaxy knew both faces of humanity. "The Vicari thought they knew us," Tay said finally. "They were wrong. Do not make the same mistake." The broadcast ended. The screen went dark. For a long moment, silence filled every room on every ship in the human fleet. Then slowly, soldiers began to return to their duties. The war was over. The message had been sent. Now came the long, hard work of rebuilding. Admiral Tay remained on the observation deck, looking at the stars. Captain Hannah stood beside him, waiting. "It is done," she said quietly. Tay nodded. "Yes, it is done." He took a deep breath. "Set course for Earth. I need to see my sister." The Ironwraith turned slowly, its great engines humming to life. Around it, the rest of the fleet followed. They moved as one, a wall of steel and fire, heading home. Behind them, the ruins of the Vicari Empire faded into the distance. A reminder, a warning, a lesson that the galaxy would never forget. Humanity had been hurt. Humanity had bled. Humanity had lost people they could never get back. But humanity had survived. And now everyone in the galaxy knew the truth. You could wound humanity. You could hurt them. You could make them cry. But if you tried to destroy them, they would destroy you first. Without hesitation. Without mercy. Without end. The stars spread out before the fleet, endless and bright. Somewhere among them, other species were watching, wondering, worrying. Good, Tay thought as he watched the lights of distant suns. Let them worry. Let them remember what happens when you harm humanity. Let them remember, and let them be afraid.